Hey, welcome back. So yes, you've seen it in the title. This artwork is at least going to exist for 200 years, and I'm going to explain in this video why, and also how you can create something as cool as this. And there's a lot more to this artwork than meets the eye. So ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be an interesting and cool video as I'm going to share with you something I recently explored as an artist that I'm very excited about. And I really want to put this out there into the universe and see who creates interesting things with this too. Like I said, this is not a normal artwork, and just if I scale this down, you can already see there's more to it than just a moving image. You can see that these layers, they do move independently, but that's not even the coolest part about this. The fact that this artwork will live for 200 years is because it is stored in a decentralized fashion. But also, on top of that, it is how we combine these layers that makes it really interesting and something that a lot of artists could explore in the future. So, I'm going to dive into what this is, how this all works, and how we can create such a piece. As this is something I want to explore further and start making more and more of these artworks. Before making this video, I thought to myself, how am I going to explain what's happening here? So, we do know that here is an artwork. It is this banana with a bunch of people floating around it in a very airy-fairy kind of way. Very cool. But what is this thing? And how does it exist? And what is it made of? And can you as an artist use it yourself? Well, that's the things I want to explore and show you and try and explain it in the simplest way possible. So I'm going to resort to some drawings as well. And I am going to show some of the code pieces, which is going to be very, very understandable. So don't be scared. We'll get into it a bit by bit. But I really want to do a good job of explaining what this thing, this art piece, this medium or method actually is. So the best place to start is to forget about all the complexities and this code that you see here on the left hand side. And let's focus on this banana with all the people floating around. This is an artwork and it's actually an HTML page that's just being rendered. HTML can render various things, text, and we all see it on a daily basis on our websites. But I took it up to make this HTML page an artwork in itself, pulling together different pieces of artworks. For example, this banana is an independent asset. This red dancing man, the blue man, the green man is all independent art pieces. And I can prove this if I go to this asset folder. I can actually look at the different various pieces here. There's the different dancing men, there's a logo, and then of course we have the half banana. So the first thing we need to understand is that this artwork is made up of different assets. And in the traditional way of Web 2 thinking, if we were to host this on a Web 2 server, we could have the assets sit anywhere, but it would most probably be a Web 2 server where these are hosted, and then we show them on the HTML page. Well, seeing that I want this artwork to live for 200 years, and Arweave actually gives us that, why not upload each one of these assets onto the Arweave decentral storage network, and then find some way to pull them back and construct this HTML. So that's exactly what I did. So the first thing I did was I took each and every layer of this art piece and uploaded it to Arweave. I actually used ArDrive because it's very easy and it feels like using Google Drive. Now that I've explained what this is or roughly what it's all about, let me visually just illustrate. So I spoke about Arweave and I've illustrated Arweave, the network here in the top. So Arweave is basically a decentralized storage network which consists of many different nodes spread across the world that allows us to upload and store data permanently. And permanently is very important there because it really is permanent. And so you need to be careful what you upload to the network. It's also public. So that being said, be careful when you upload stuff to a decentralized storage network. Also, the Arweave is being used because they can actually provide us a storage up to 200 years, which is pretty cool. So you can read up more about it. But apart from the decentral storage mechanism we use, The idea behind this art piece over here is the concept around it. You see, I want to be able to create more artworks using some of the same assets in various different art pieces. And to do that, I actually need to isolate each one of these artworks and upload it separately to Arweave for us to reuse in our HTML. So the first thing I had to do was I looked at the banana and I said, well, we're going to use this banana, so upload it to Arweave. Once I've done that, Arweave gives us back a transaction hash, and we now have a point of reference to this banana in the decentral network. Similarly, I did the same with this blue guy, this yellow one, this red one, and the green one. Now, these ones also have their own transaction hashes. And just for reference, just to show you what a transaction hash looks like, it's something like this. It's a string of characters, basically, random characters that's built up based on the data. So just so you know, this will look like this, and each one will look different. So, but apart from that, now that we have the transaction hashes, we can actually reference that data on the Arweave network. Now I build up an HTML page, which you've seen, which is basically this piece of code over here. Now the HTML page, we can do various cool things with it, but in essence, it acts as our container where we can add styles and manipulate how these assets are displayed on the page. For example, you see that here I'm using these men dancing around in a pattern. However, the thing that I did was I used each of these hashes and used it inside the HTML. So these hashes were used and referenced inside of the code. Now the code has access to the images that is actually stored on Arweave, and we can manipulate and adjust them and wiggle them around. However, in order to do this, I also thought it would be cool if I could add my artist logo and as well as some JavaScript, which can do things like animations and click events, as well as some styles with CSS, also in a decentral fashion, or if I want to reuse these two. So I took them, I uploaded it, I also got the transaction hash, and then the same thing was done. I was just reusing it in the HTML page. Lastly, what I did was I took the HTML page itself, uploaded that to Arweave, and here we got our transaction hash of the HTML page. And now that we have that final transaction hash, that will be the entry point for someone to view our art piece. We can then take that, make an NFT out of it, and actually put it up for sale on a marketplace. But the wonderful thing about this method that I feel is really cool is the fact that when I have these assets, I'm basically building up a repository of assets that I can reuse in other HTML artworks like this one. Like I said, I can reuse the banana, and I actually have an example of that, which I'll show you now as well. But as long as you understand the core concept of what's happening with this type of method, then everything we're going to talk about now, and even when we create the art piece, is going to come easily to you and you're going to understand what's happening. Now with the visuals done, let me show you how I actually uploaded the assets individually, that banana and the dancing men. Well, I used ArDrive. ArDrive is a nice, a convenient way for us to upload data and images, whatever, to the Arweave network. So if you want to use the Arweave SDK and do it through code, you can do that as well. But I feel like this is very nice and a convenient way to visually see what I'm doing. So I created a folder, and I do have a video on ArDrive if you're interested in watching that. But I created a folder, and you can see I created subfolders as well. One being this assets folder. So if I go in here, I basically uploaded, clicked and dragged the artworks in here, and these were individually uploaded. Remember we said each one has its own transaction hash. Well, if we go to this banana asset and we click on preview, we can actually see the asset itself. And this is the hash that I was talking about. So we can actually get access to this banana anywhere in the world. by just going through a gateway. So if we go and type in arweave.net and put our hash, we should be able to get there. And the same goes if I want to see this blue man, I can just go to the details. Instead of clicking preview, I actually just want to show you all you need is this data hash. And I just replace this hash here at the end and I hit enter, I get to the blue man. This shows you that each one of these assets we can obtain and get back from Arweave just by simply having reference to its hash. And that's very important because then we can actually get access to each one of these assets. And also, I have a folder for all the finalized artworks. So there we have the Oh Look art piece, which is the one you have seen. So if I click on preview, you can see all the assets. I've also made one before this, which is called Banana Split. And if I preview that one, you can see the same banana being used in this artwork as well. And there it is. But it's a totally different art piece. But this notion of reusability is quite here. And it is pretty cool because it means that I can create so many art assets and reuse them as I create in the future. At this point, I'm very curious to know what you are thinking about this method so far. So let me know in the comments what you think, what possibilities are running through your mind, because I think if you understand how this works and you understand that these assets can be literally anything, you can build up insanely cool stuff. It doesn't have to be artworks, it can be applications, it can be any sort of reference that you want to keep, manifestos, anything that you want to be decentral. Anyway, now let's take a look at the actual code. So we've been glimpsing at this, but we haven't really been paying attention to the code. And I want to show you how simple it actually is to build up and use these assets. Something to note, these assets are on my machine, so they're not on Arweave. I just keep them here as reference for me to easily build out an artwork before I fully commit and upload it all to Arweave. However, the CSS, which are the styles that's driving this, as well as the JS, is all sitting here too, which have been uploaded as assets, but as a JavaScript asset or a CSS asset. And therefore, I can pull them in, load the scripts, and have everything a bit more automated, which I'll show you next. And then we're going to jump into looking at how we construct this whole piece. And we're even going to create an artwork right here on this video too. So firstly, let me create some space by moving this up and then just indicating what the JavaScript and CSS is actually doing. So the CSS itself is just containing a few classes for styling how the elements should be positioned on the page. And I can show you the impact of that. If I go back to this artwork, I comment out this line, you can see that we are pulling in the hash, and I'll talk about the data Arweave just now. But if I remove this for now, save it, and I reload this, you should see the same art piece loaded, but it's all a bit wonky. Can't really see any of our stuff because it doesn't know how to handle and how to position the art assets. And that's where the CSS comes in. And this is a CSS file that I can, or hash that is uploaded to Arweave that I can reuse in all my other artworks. When I have it in, the classes will apply, the styles will apply, and you can actually see the artwork constructed nicely. If you haven't worked with CSS before, it's just a way to style the HTML, which is all of this. Okay. And now let's get to the JavaScript part. The JavaScript part is quite interesting. So if we look at this JavaScript file, which I've uploaded as well, I'm just saying that so that it is embedded in our minds that each one of these assets lives on our Arweave, and you can actually access them yourselves too. This is basically a script that I've written to make it easier for me to use the assets in an HTML file. By using the data Arweave attribute, I can actually just supply a hash to an image and it will go and replace the gateway to get and fetch that data. This is so that in my HTML, if I have a div like so, or if I have the styles like this, I can just attach a data Arweave attribute and pass in the hash. And the only thing why this is important is so that I don't have to do Arweave, right? .NET, and then that hash, right? And this is the only reason why I'm doing it through the script, because it's going to be quite redundant to do that. And on top of it, the script helps me to look for different gateways that is available to have that data. This is just for me to run through the gateways and see if I can find one that is not down at the moment and can give me back the data. That's the only reason why this script is there. But of course, if you are playing around with this for the first time, you don't need all these scripts. You can just go to arweave.net/your hash and get your image in here. But I wanted to show this a little bit more in detail. The other thing that this script does automatically for me, personally as an artist, is it allows me to have my logo here at the bottom. Now it's very difficult to see with this dark one, but if I open up the banana split one, we can see that there's a tiny logo here at the bottom. This logo is configured with scripts to be clickable, and if I click on it, display actually the assets that is used within this artwork. How cool is that? I can also do it with this one, even though the logo is a bit dark down there. We can see that there's all the dancing men and the half banana being used. And I did this because I thought if I ever wanted to use an art piece from this artwork in a future artwork, I can simply go to this table and look at where this asset lives. So if I want to reuse this face with glasses, I can simply go there and see where it lives and use it in a future artwork. That's why I did it like so. And that all comes custom in the script that I've added. But like I said, this is all bells and whistles. The core and the bulk of this whole thing lives in this body tag over here. This is where we construct the artwork, provide the hashes to the different art pieces, and construct the actual finalized art piece. Now, if I've lost you at this point, I hope it's alright and I hope you've enjoyed it to this point. But if you haven't and you kind of stayed with me and understand a little bit about HTML and are excited about what's coming next, in this next part, we're actually going to create an artwork from scratch. So even if you haven't understood anything I just did, I'm going to build up an art piece now from the ground up. You can see what I do, so you can see the process, and you can actually, after this video is live, load that art piece for yourself and check it out. So let's get going. Let's create the new artwork so you can understand what's happening in this body piece more clearly. And it's very exciting for me because I get to create an artwork. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun right now. First thing that we need to do is start from scratch. And to do this, I've made some new assets. So I'm going to open my assets folder and drag the new assets in there. So the assets that I've made is basically going to be this pink cube, which I drew out in Photoshop, this line face, which is quite difficult to see behind this dark background, and then this hello text. We're going to make something cool. And I think I'm actually going to start off by duplicating my template. So I made these two template files, this HTML and this JSON, so that I can recreate assets easier. I'm going to duplicate that, and then this top one I'm going to call hello, and this one as well. So this will be the hello artwork. So the first thing I like to do in my template is actually replace a bunch of these things. But for the demonstration purposes of this video, I'm going to start commenting out any of the code that is not really necessary yet so that we can start building this up. So the only code that's really relevant is this piece down here. And here at the top, I'm just going to replace this with hello. All right. This is simply the title at the top of the HTML page. Now that we have this, I'm going to drag this in here and we can see that it is a empty page with the word hello there. And I can close off all these other ones. So this will be the artwork that we work with. So let's start by potentially maybe giving this a nice background color. So in order to do that, realistically, all we need basically is really anything inside of this div in the canvas. This is where our whole art piece is going to live. So we'll start with this. Now, this has a class of canvas, and that is actually defined in the pre-uploaded CSS that I have over here. Remember that CSS file that I showed you with all the styles? This one is already on ArDrive or Arweave, I would say, and I need to pull this in for me to get that canvas style. Now, you don't need this. You can just create your own CSS if you like, but I'm going to start off with this. And just for quick reference, if I go to my base, I can see that the canvas gives some style, height, and widths, and so forth. And I also have this interesting art piece tag or CSS class that I use for my div elements inside of the canvas. Currently, if I save this as is, nothing really happens. However, if I go ahead and add a div element right now with a class name of art piece, and let's give it a style. So I would like to have a width of 100%, and let's do height of 100%. Now we won't see anything unless we give this a background color. So let's give it a background color of potentially start off with this blue violet. So we are just missing this bracket, and now we have a canvas with a div element which should be the size of our canvas and have a blue violet color. Now, in order for this all to work, remember this comes from the Arweave network, and I need my script. So I'm just going to add this script back in here now. You can just see it take a full effect. If I reload, reloading assets or loading assets, and we can see that here's our purple background, and there at the bottom there's the logo. This is what the script does for me. Now currently this logo won't go anywhere. If I click on it, it's replace, so that I remind myself to replace the link. But yeah, that is how I am doing it. And again, just to illustrate the fact that you don't need this fancy script, if I do comment this out and I save it, nothing happens, my logo goes away, but I still need, let's say, the CSS. What I could do is go https arweave.net /. If I do that and href, save it, reload, there we go. I pulled in my styles straight from the source. So I just want to make it clear that my script does that all for me in the back, plus do a few extra cool things as well, such as add my logo. The next thing for us to do is to get our assets loaded up and positioned in nice ways. Now, our assets, they are living here locally, but like I said, we want to do the full Arweave experience. We don't want to use local assets. We want these assets to persist. So now the next thing for me to do is to actually go to ArDrive. We're going to go to resources, and let's go to assets. Now I'm going to drag in these 3 new assets that I've made. Okay, and once I'm happy with the cost and everything, remember you pay once and then it's there forever. So it's not like a recurring cost, at least that not at the moment. So we'll wait for the load. And once they're ready, we can actually go ahead and use them in our HTML. All right, and they are uploaded. So now we can actually go and see and preview our hello image. We can go and preview our face, and here it is. And then lastly, our 3D cube. And there it is as well. Great. And I'm also going to use the banana, seeing that this is the purpose of this reusability. So we can see there they are with their hashes. All right, so now what I'm going to do, just to get our images that's on Arweave back into our application or our HTML, I'm going to create an image tag. And then for now, I'm going to create a source file. I'm going to do https /arweave now. So let's copy this a few more times so we can go and replace the other hashes. And in the meantime, I also changed the background color to pink. I realized that the images are not there, and that's because I just need the .NET. I forgot, so I'm just, yeah. Now that I have this, I'm going to save. And boom, we see our images flutter in there. I don't know if you've seen it for a brief second, but they are there. If I go and just turn off this pink background, you should see them there. However, I do already have my scripts in place, so I'm going to start using it. So let me start with this one. And here I'm just going to simply give it a class, and this would be the art piece class. And then for the source, I'm going to change this into data Arweave. And then because I have this, I'm not going to use the actual URL, but instead just hash. In doing so, our script should kick in and we should actually start seeing our artworks. And there we go. There we see the beautiful face. And if we scale it up, it scales up quite nicely. Now, it's important to note, I can add whatever extra CSS I need to make this look good, right? And before we do, let me just convert these to work the same as this one as well. So we just have the hashes and my data Arweave. And now if I save and I reload, you should start seeing kind of all the images just on top of one another. Now, this is pretty cool. I like this kind of abstract style of artwork, but I do want to have some thought behind it. I do want the banana to be on the left-hand side at the bottom, and I do want these cubes to be spread out. I also would like to have more than one cube and kind of have the face reveal itself as you scale up the window. Now, it's important while I work to actually go and comment for me what this image actually is, because we're dealing with these hashes and sometimes it's not very clear what they actually are. So for me, a good thing to do is just label whatever we're working with down there. All right, so let's go ahead and copy this cube a few more times. Maybe 3 would be enough. I actually want to move this face up. Let's move it maybe above all the cubes. Now let's go ahead and give this cube a bit of styles. We're going to go with a left and top position of 50% and then transform this 50 and 50 and rotate it a tiny bit with a height of 60%. This will just give it a bit of rotation so that it doesn't look all the same because there's these 3 cubes in there. So if I now refresh, we should see the order becoming more apparent. And now I'll do the same for these two, but the only thing that I do change is a bit of the positioning, the top and left, and of course the rotation and height. And I've added an extra cube just for good measure. So if we reload this now, you should see the cubes behind the face and the banana. And just to make it a bit more apparent, I'm going to take this face, banana, and image and just comment them out. It's an interesting way of working as an artist to build things like this. So there you can see, there's my cubes. They kind of jittered around. I don't know how to describe it, but just placed in random positions. And as I scale up, the one moves slower than the other, causing this nice parallaxing effect. Okay, so that's what I want. And I actually want the image to be kind of revealing from these cubes. So that's what we're going to do next. For the face, I'm also just going to add these few styles. So we're going to make sure that it has a good height. And then for the banana, what we could do is provide it with some styles like so. And then for the hello text, do the same. Now, if we refresh, we should see a different picture, right? We should start seeing our art piece. And there we go. So here we can see there's this banana on the left. Of course, I use the banana because I want to illustrate again this reusability of assets, right? The halo and the cubes and the face right there. And if I scale up, you can see the movement of all these elements. The banana staying quite static, just moving to the side. Halo starting to pop up there and grow. And these cubes just dissipating. Very abstract. However, I am liking the piece. So let's call it right there. And let me show you the next steps that I take to ensure that when you click on this logo that the assets will actually load so that I can show you that step too. So in order to make this button work, if we click on it, that it actually shows the correct JSON for us, we need some JSON for that. And that's why I duplicated 2 files in the beginning, One is an HTML and one is a simple JSON file. So here it's pretty straightforward. I have a method where I go and I just replace. So I replace that. These ones I'm actually going to duplicate 4 times because we've got 4 separate artworks that we use. We can go down to the first one. This one is the pink cube. And again, this is where the labeling is helping us out a lot. So here we can highlight that. And now it's just a simple process of replacing them all like so. And there we go. Now that they all replaced, what I usually do is again, I go to ArDrive, but this time I go back to my art pieces. And when I am ready, I upload the JSON file first that describes which art pieces were used, and that will give us the context. And also, very important, the hash that we can then go and attach to the link. Okay, so now that that's uploaded, we're going to click on it, grab the hash like we do with everything, and it's simply the same process. Remember, this is my script, so this is just something I need, but the possibilities are endless. So now that I've added to my assets metadata, I can save it, and if I reload, it should hopefully, if we click on my logo, we should see that file. So let's click, and there it is. So yeah, that's how simple that is. The last step, of course, is to upload the art. So now we can just upload the artwork itself, and this is the HTML final file. Now, like I said, when we have this hash, we can reach it with arweave.net or any other Arweave gateway, and we should be able to see our image. Our assets will be living there forever. Isn't that really, really cool? I think it's so fascinating to explore this type of art creation, and this method is really interesting and lends itself for all sorts of possibilities. Oh, I'm excited because now our Hello artwork is on Arweave, and there it is. So we can see that this is the final hash, and yeah, pretty cool, right? So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. It wasn't a tutorial per se, but it is a method that I wanted to show that I'm exploring. And let me know in the comments if you want to see more um, of this kind of research that I'm busy doing, because I really think that apart from artworks, I think decentral applications could be built in a very similar but interesting way. Reusability of style sheets and all sorts of cool stuff can be built this way. So let me know. But anyways, I hope you did enjoy the video. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers for now.